They say wine brings truth to the surface. I didn't know how true that was until that night. Red wine, candlelight, the scent of rosemary and roasted garlic hanging in the air. Haley had made my favorite, lemon herb chicken with roasted fingerlings and that earthy, almost too strong Cabernet she only opened on special nights. For a moment, it felt like old times. Familiar, intimate, safe. Until she looked at me, her eyes flickering in the low light, and said, "I've been thinking a lot about us." That should have been my first clue. Not, "I love you," or "we should take a trip," or "I miss the way things were." No, just us. I sat back in my chair, swirling the last of the wine. Us. Her lips parted, then closed. A nervous flutter of her fingers around the stem of her glass betrayed her. Haley never fidgeted, not even during our biggest fights. She was the composed one, always calm, always calculated. "I feel like we've lost something," she said, staring into her wine like it held the answers. The spark, the closeness, the intimacy. I blinked. "We just had sex 3 nights ago." "Having sex doesn't mean being close," she said softly, and that hit me harder than I expected. "It's mechanical now. Like routine maintenance." That stung. It shouldn't have. We've been married for 7 years. Routines form. But to hear her say it that way, so clinical, it felt like she was describing someone else's marriage. I nodded slowly, giving her room. "So what are you saying?" She inhaled, deep and deliberate. Her voice, when it came, was unnervingly calm. "I want to open the marriage." I laughed. I actually laughed. It wasn't bitter or mean-spirited. It was just disbelief, like she'd suggested we take up base jumping or join a cult. But her face didn't change. She wasn't joking. "You're serious?" "I've done a lot of reading," she said quickly, the words rushing out now, like a dam had burst. "About how monogamy can sometimes limit growth. About ethical non-monogamy. About how giving each other space to explore can actually bring us closer." "Closer," I repeated. The word tasted strange in my mouth now. "You think sleeping with other people will bring us closer?" "Not just sex," she said. "Freedom. Honesty. We've become safe. Predictable. I want to feel desired again. And I want you to feel that, too." I leaned forward, my knuckles whitening around my glass. "Are you saying you don't feel desired?" She hesitated, and in that hesitation, everything between us shifted. "I feel seen," she said slowly. "But not wanted. Not in that raw, breathless way. Not anymore." I didn't speak. I couldn't. My heartbeat was thudding in my ears, drowning out the soft background hum of jazz she'd put on earlier. This wasn't about just needing a night out. This was something deeper, calculated. Then came the kicker. "I made a list," she said, almost shyly, "of people I'd like to explore with." A list. I felt like I'd been sucker punched. My jaw clenched involuntarily. "You made a list?" Haley reached into her bag, pulling out a small, folded sheet of paper. She didn't hand it to me. She just placed it gently on the table between us, like a peace offering or maybe a bomb. I didn't touch it. "Let me guess. These are just hypothetical? Names pulled from thin air. They're people I trust," she said. "People I feel comfortable with. It's not just about attraction. It's about chemistry." The word chemistry made my stomach turn. We had chemistry once. Fuck, we still had it on good nights. But now it was being siphoned off to others? I picked up the list. 5 names. 3 men. 2 women. "Some of these people, we know," I said. She nodded, not meeting my eyes. "Jason from your gym?" I said, incredulous. "The guy who fixed our dishwasher last month?" "I trust him," she said softly. I dropped the list. It fluttered to the floor like it weighed nothing. I wished it had weighed more, enough to break the damn table. "I can't believe this," I whispered. "You've been planning this." "I've been thinking about it," she said. "There's a difference." I stood up. My body felt foreign, like I was inhabiting someone else's skin. "Have you acted on any of it?" "No," she said quickly. "I wanted to talk to you first." I meant that. This isn't cheating. This is an invitation. An invitation. Like she was asking me to a dinner party, not the unraveling of our marriage. She stood too, stepping around the table, resting her hand on my chest. Her touch still ignited something in me. That was the worst part. Even now, even in the middle of this emotional storm, my body still wanted her. "I love you," she whispered. "But I also love me. And I need to feel alive again." I closed my eyes, her hand still pressed over my heart. "And what if I say no?" I asked. Her hand fell away. "Then I don't know where that leaves us," she said quietly. And just like that, everything shifted. The woman I'd build a life with, shared beds, laughter, fights, dreams, had just given me a choice: evolve or fade. I wasn't ready to answer that night. I wasn't ready for anything. But I knew one thing as I stood in our kitchen, staring down at that damn list. Nothing would ever be the same again. I didn't sleep that night. Haley's list sat crumpled in my pocket like a splinter I couldn't remove. I kept pulling it out, smoothing the paper, reading the names like they might change. Jason, Ben, Erica. Some of them were acquaintances. One was someone we'd had dinner with just a few weeks ago. The memory of him laughing over pasta while I poured the wine made my jaw clench so hard I thought my teeth would crack. She said it was about growth, about feeling alive. But to me, it sounded like she was already gone, already somewhere else, in someone else's arms, mentally if not physically. I spent the early morning sitting on the back patio, watching the sun rise over our tiny lawn. Haley emerged just after 6, robe cinched tight, a steaming mug in each hand like we hadn't just detonated our marriage the night before. She sat beside me without a word, handed me the coffee. I didn't take it. So, I said, my voice hoarse, "This is really what you want?" She didn't flinch. "I want us to stop pretending we're happy when we're not. I want honesty. I want to reconnect with you, yes, but also with myself. By fucking other people," I snapped. She winced. "It's not just about sex." "The hell it isn't." Silence stretched between us. I looked at her then, not just her face, but the woman behind it. She was still beautiful, still the same Haley I fell in love with in college. But there was something in her eyes I hadn't seen before. Something hardened, detached, like she'd already said goodbye. "I don't want to lose you," she said finally, her voice small. "I'm trying to save us, believe it or not." "You're trying to save us by leaving the door open for someone else to walk in?" "No," she said, turning to face me. "I'm trying to open a door for both of us. I'm not asking for permission. I'm asking for partnership." It was bullshit. Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was the most honest thing she'd said in months. "I'm not built for this," I said, running a hand through my hair. "You know that." She touched my arm. "But what if it's not about being built for it? What if it's about choosing it, just long enough to see what's on the other side?" I looked at her hand. The same fingers that used to trace lazy circles on my back after sex. The same hands that helped pick out the tiles in our bathroom, that danced across piano keys when she thought no one was listening. Now those same hands had written a list of people she wanted to share her body with. "Let me be clear," I said, standing. "If I say yes, it's not because I want to. It's because you're giving me no other option." "That's not fair." "No," I cut her off. "What's not fair is you showing up with a solution to a problem we never agreed existed." Her lips trembled, and for a moment I saw the old Haley, the one who used to cry during Pixar movies, who loved old bookstores and spontaneous road trips. But that Haley had already left. "Fine," I said, breathing hard. "Let's do this your way. But I have one condition." She blinked. "Okay." "No one close. No friends. No emotional entanglements. If you're going to screw around, keep it transactional." She nodded, slowly. Too slowly. "You agree to that?" I pressed. "Yes," she said, that same calm tone she used when negotiating our last refinance. "Of course. That's reasonable." I saw the smirk before she could hide it. "Why are you smiling?" "I'm not," she said, but her lips were still twitching. "You think this is funny?" "No," she said, but the smirk was back. "It's just ironic, maybe, that the moment we finally get honest with each other, it has to be under terms." That was the thing about Haley. She had a way of making betrayal sound like evolution. Like she was handing me a gift while stealing the floor from under my feet. "I'll need some time," I muttered, walking away. "Take all the time you need," she called after me. "Just don't shut me out." I didn't answer. What was there to say? That afternoon, I sat in my car outside our house, still trying to wrap my mind around what I'd agreed to. I thought about what it would mean, watching her dress up for someone else, hearing her phone buzz with texts I'd pretend not to see. The sounds, the smells, the knowledge of her with someone else. But then, if she was going to do it anyway, wasn't this better? At least this way, I could control part of it. Or so I thought. That night, she kissed me before leaving. Just a peck, like she was heading out to meet a friend. She looked incredible. Red dress, heels, a touch of perfume I hadn't smelled in years. I should have felt angry. Instead, I felt hollow. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. "Are you?" She didn't answer. I watched her drive away, taillights fading into the night. She was free now. And so, in a way, was I. Chloe's laugh echoed through our living room, the kind of laugh that fills up the air and lingers long after the moment's passed. She always had that effect on a room, on people. On me, if I'm being honest. She was Haley's best friend since high school. The kind of woman who turned heads without trying. Curvy in all the right places, with that effortless magnetism that came from knowing exactly who she was and never apologizing for it. Chloe was the wild one back then, the rule breaker, the risk taker. I was the guy she teased with that wicked glint in her eye, but nothing more. Always nothing more. She'd been around for years, barbecues, birthdays, random wine nights that turned into dancing barefoot in our kitchen. But now, something about her felt different. Maybe it was me that had changed. Maybe it was the way her eyes lingered a little too long when we spoke. Maybe it was the way her smile curved differently when Haley wasn't looking. That night, she was over for dinner. Just the three of us, a casual Friday evening. Haley had cooked a way too fancy charcuterie board that looked straight off Pinterest. Chloe brought her usual bottle of Prosecco and a bold attitude to match. So, Chloe said, settling on the couch across from me, I heard you and Haley are doing the open thing now. My heart thudded. Haley froze mid-sip. Jesus, Chloe, Haley muttered. What? Chloe shrugged, playful and unbothered. You posted that conscious freedom quote on Instagram with a rose emoji and a black heart. You might as well have tattooed poly-life on your forehead. Haley rolled her eyes. It's supposed to be private. Chloe leaned in, all faux innocence. You know I'm not private, people. I looked between them. You told her. She's my best friend, Haley said. She's seen me through worse. Chloe grinned at me over the rim of her glass. Worse, huh? I'm flattered. Don't read into it, Haley warned. I never do, Chloe said. I still on me. Then she winked. It was subtle. Maybe Haley didn't notice. But I did. Something shifted in the room after that. Subtle, electric. Haley got a call and excused herself to the bedroom. Work, she said. Some urgent weekend client crisis. Chloe and I were left alone. The silence settled thick between us, heavy with tension neither of us acknowledged. So, Chloe said, lounging back, how's the freedom treating you? I laughed, bitter and hollow. Feels more like exile than liberation. She tilted her head. You didn't want it? I didn't ask for it. She nodded slowly, swirling the Prosecco in her glass. But you agreed to it. I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice, she said, even when it doesn't feel like one. I looked at her, really looked at her, bare legs tucked beneath her, that red lipstick a little smudged from the wine, the way her blouse hung loose at the collarbone. There had always been something between us. Something just under the surface. I used to chalk it up to chemistry we never dared test. Now, the rules had changed. Haley told you everything? I asked. Enough, Chloe said. I know she's seeing Jason, and I know you've been restrained. I promised no close friends, I said, meaning every word and hating how unsteady it sounded coming out of my mouth. Chloe raised an eyebrow. So I'm off limits. I nodded. She smiled. Then we'll just talk. And we did. For hours. We talked about old times, Haley's first broken heart, the time Chloe snuck us into a sold-out concert. That weekend we all got drunk on the coast and Haley fell asleep in the sand while Chloe and I stayed up watching the stars. We talked about marriage and betrayal and that strange, hollow ache that comes from sleeping next to someone who's no longer really there. Her eyes softened when I mentioned the list. She made a list, she said, incredulous. That's cold. She thought it was mature. Chloe snorted. It's calculated. I found myself laughing for the first time in days. Real laughter. The kind that felt like a release. You know, Chloe said, leaning in, her voice low and smooth, Haley's always been a little clueless. I raised an eyebrow. About what? About you, she said, staring straight at me. She never really saw how much of yourself you gave her, or what she stood to lose. I swallowed hard. And you did. Chloe didn't blink. Always. A long silence settled between us. There was heat in the air now. Something unspoken hanging between us like the final click of a loaded gun. Chloe, I said, unsure of where I was going with it. She stood then, walked slowly to the kitchen, rinsed her glass. Relax, she said over her shoulder. I'm not making a move. I'm not her. Then she turned, eyes locking on mine. But if I were you, I'd stop letting her think she's the only one with options. It started with a text. Hey, you up? It was 11:42 p.m. Haley was out, again, with Jason, I assumed. She hadn't said it, but she didn't have to. I'd stopped asking. I'd stopped needing to know. The message was from Chloe. I I stared at my phone for a minute too long before replying. Yeah, can't sleep. Seconds later, same. Want to talk? We started slow. Just harmless stuff. Music. Work. A new documentary she recommended on serial killers, her weird fascination. Always a red flag on dating apps, she joked. Then came the turn. She asked, "Are you okay?" And for some reason, I told the truth. No. I feel like a stranger in my own life. I expected a polite response. Maybe something comforting. But what I got back was a truth of her own. Haley always assumed you'd never leave. That's her biggest mistake. I sat up in bed, rereading the sentence like it was a revelation. Why do you say that? I asked. Her reply, because she never saw how women look at you when she's not around. A chill ran down my spine. Not fear, but something hotter, sharper. I typed and erased a dozen different things before settling on, "And how do you look at me?" Her typing bubble popped up, then disappeared. Then came the answer, like someone I shouldn't want, but do. The next morning, I told myself it was just late-night honesty, that nothing had changed. But everything had. Over the next week, we talked constantly. Not in the open, not in person, Haley would have noticed, but in texts, DMs, voicemails sent between meetings. It felt illicit, even though I wasn't breaking any rules. Not technically, but I was slipping. Fast. Chloe had always been magnetic, but now that the gate had opened, I felt pulled toward her like gravity. I knew the way she thought, sarcastic, passionate, a little broken in the same places I was. We weren't just flirting. We were bonding. She told me about the time she almost left town after college, planned to move to LA, then stayed because of some guy who ghosted her after 3 months. I told her about my parents' divorce, how I still remembered the smell of my dad's aftershave as he packed his bags. We talked about us. What we'd been in the past, just background characters in each other's lives. And what we were now. Close. Too close. Friday night came. Haley was headed to an overnight retreat with some guy whose name she didn't even bother to hide anymore. I texted Chloe, "Come over." She didn't respond for 10 minutes. I started pacing the house, regretting the message, wanting to take it back. Then, be there in 20. I cleaned like a man possessed. Wiped the counters. Sprayed cologne. Changed shirts twice. I hated how much I cared. Hated how nervous I was. This wasn't a date. This wasn't a thing. Except, it was. When she arrived, she wore a simple black top, jeans, and no makeup, just lip gloss and something in her eyes that said she knew exactly what was happening. We didn't hug. We didn't pretend it was just a casual visit. I handed her a drink, bourbon over ice. She nodded in approval. "You remember," she said. Of course. We sat on the couch, shoulder to shoulder but not touching. The air buzzed between us. "You okay?" she asked. "I don't know." She looked at me then, dead on. She doesn't realize what she's risking, does she? That stopped me. The tone of her voice, it wasn't gloating. It wasn't flirtatious. It was sincere. And that made it worse. "She thinks I'll always be there," I said. "Even while she's out, proving she doesn't need me." "She's not wrong about one thing," Chloe said, voice lower now. "You're a good man. Maybe too good." I turned to her. "And you?" She smiled slowly. "I've never been good, especially when I want something." The pause was deafening. And then I did something I never thought I'd do. I reached out and touched her hand. She didn't flinch. She didn't pull away. Instead, she intertwined her fingers with mine. "I should go," she whispered. "You could stay," I said, barely audible. She looked down at our hands, then back at me. "This isn't just sex," she said. "You feel that too, don't you?" I nodded. "Yeah, that's the problem." She leaned in, her lips just inches from mine. "Then tell me to leave." I didn't, and she didn't move. The first kiss didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like relief, like exhaling after holding your breath for years. Chloe's lips were warm, soft, and tentative at first. Her fingers rested lightly against my chest, her breath catching as I pulled her closer. There was a hesitation between us, a question hanging in the air. Are we really doing this? But the answer had already been given the moment we'd allowed silence to stretch between our gazes instead of turning away. The kiss deepened. It wasn't rushed or sloppy or desperate. It was slow, curious, like we were learning each other through touch. When our mouths parted, I saw it in her eyes. This wasn't a mistake for her either. We didn't speak. Words would have broken the spell. Instead, she took my hand and led me upstairs. Haley's scent was still in the sheets. I hated that I noticed. Chloe did too. This feels wrong, she said, looking at the bed. It is, I said. We both paused, waiting, maybe, for the moment of guilt to crush us. But it didn't come. There was only the weight of years of tension finally uncoiling. She reached for me again. This time, more certain. We didn't fumble. We didn't apologize. Her hands were confident, tracing the edge of my jaw, slipping under my shirt. I helped her out of hers. The softness of her skin under my palms made my heart race. I memorized every inch, every curve, every quiet breath she gave me as we moved together. And when we finally fell into bed, we didn't just fuck. We made something that felt alive. There was no competition with Haley, no sense of revenge. Not in that moment. Just connection. Raw, intimate, overwhelming. Afterward, we lay tangled in the sheets, her head resting on my shoulder, my arm wrapped around her like she'd always belonged there. Is this a one-time thing? She asked quietly. I don't know, I said truthfully. Should it be? She didn't answer right away. Then, I don't think I want it to be. Neither did I. The next morning, I didn't hear from Haley. That wasn't unusual anymore. She had come home late, maybe even not at all. I wasn't sure. I didn't care. Chloe had left early, slipping out with a kiss on my cheek and a quiet promise to text later. I sat at the kitchen table, staring into my coffee. The guilt didn't come. Just clarity. I hadn't crossed the line. Haley had moved the line. I simply followed. Later that week, it happened again. Another night, another excuse from Haley. Another drink with Chloe. Another slow burn from touch to kiss to bedroom. But this time, afterward, she didn't leave. She stayed. We watched an old movie in the dark, legs intertwined. She laughed in all the wrong places, just like she always did, and I found myself smiling so hard it hurt. We talked. About everything. About nothing. About how strange it was to find something real in the ruins of something else. And when she kissed me again, slower this time, more deliberately, I felt it shift. This wasn't just escape. It was becoming something else. Something dangerous. Haley noticed. Of course she did. The third time Chloe came over, I told myself it was innocent. Just dinner. Just company. But Haley came home earlier than expected. She saw us through the window laughing, sitting close. Too close. She didn't say anything that night. She just went to bed, silent. But the next day, over coffee, she dropped her mug. It shattered. Did you sleep with her? She asked, voice quiet but sharp. I didn't lie. Yes. Her eyes narrowed, glass shards still glinting on the floor between us. You said no friends. And you said you wanted honesty. I shot back. Silence. We stared at each other across the kitchen, 1,000 words hanging between us like a loaded gun. Chloe was always curious about you, she said finally. I just never thought she'd act on it. She didn't, I replied. I did. That truth hit her harder than I expected. She flinched, then straightened. So what now? You want to swap her in like a spare part? No, I said. I didn't plan this. But you wanted it. I needed it, I corrected. That stopped her. For once, Haley didn't have a snappy retort. No smug wisdom. No detached, enlightened tone. Just a flicker of something behind her eyes. Fear. And maybe, for the first time, regret. Haley didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't throw anything. She didn't even raise her voice. But somehow, the silence was worse. That morning, after I admitted to sleeping with Chloe, she walked away from the conversation like she was floating through fog. No outburst. No dramatic confrontation. Just a door closing softly behind her. She left the house for hours. When she came back, she didn't look at me. She went straight to the bedroom, took a long shower, and emerged wearing that black silk robe she used to save for special nights. Not for me, though. Not anymore. That night, I slept in the guest room. It wasn't discussed. It just happened. And that was how the new era began. The next day, I found her in the kitchen, chopping vegetables like they were responsible for the fracture in our marriage. The radio was on at jazz, low volume. She didn't look up when I walked in. Are we going to talk about it? I asked. What's there to talk about? She said, not breaking rhythm with the knife. You broke the one rule. I crossed my arms, leaning against the counter. And you broke the marriage. That got her attention. She set the knife down, turned slowly, wiping her hands on a towel. Excuse me. You came to me with a list of people you wanted to screw. You asked for freedom. I gave it to you. You didn't care how I felt about it. Now you want to play victim because I found comfort in someone else. Her jaw clenched. It's not about comfort. It's about betrayal. No, I said. Betrayal was when you kissed Jason in our car, then came home and kissed me like it meant nothing. She flinched, just slightly. Enough. I didn't mean for this to happen, she said. And I didn't plan for Chloe, I replied. But it happened. And I'm not sorry. Her eyes welled. Not with tears, but anger. Hurt. Pride. You promised. No, I cut her off. You made the rules. You decided what our marriage should be. I just played along. And now that I'm not losing, you can't handle it. For a moment, I thought she might finally explode. I saw the tension build in her chest, the flicker of emotion behind her eyes. But instead, she turned back to the cutting board. Dinner will be ready in 30. And just like that, she retreated behind the routine. It didn't stop there. The next week was war, waged in passive-aggressive silence. She started wearing perfume again, just around the house. Shorter dresses. Lingerie she hadn't touched in years. Not for me. To remind me of what she still had. One night, she walked in around midnight, hair tousled, makeup slightly smudged, and tossed her heels onto the living room rug like they were trophies. How was your night? I asked. She gave me a smirk. Liberating. And disappeared upstairs. The next morning, she made pancakes. From scratch. She hadn't done that since our 3rd anniversary. Chloe noticed something was off. We were sitting in her apartment, post-coffee and mid-conversation, when she leaned in and asked, "What's going on at home?" "She knows," I said. Chloe sighed. "And she's unraveling." Chloe looked at me, quiet for a beat. "Do you regret it?" "No." "Do you regret me?" I looked at her then, really looked. She was in a hoodie, no makeup, hair pulled back, and still one of the most beautiful people I'd ever seen. Not just physically. There was something about her, steady, fierce, real, that made me feel like I'd been living in grayscale until she touched me. "I don't regret anything about you," I said. She smiled. "Good. Because I'm not a game piece in your marital crisis. I'm not here for revenge. If this isn't real, I walk." "It's real," I said. And I meant it. 2 days later, Haley confronted me again. Not with tears or accusations. With strategy. "I want to redefine the rules," she said, sitting across from me at the dining table, as if we were negotiating a merger. "No more close friends," she said. "No one who has history with either of us. No more staying out all night." I raised an eyebrow. "You're serious?" She nodded. "And if you're going to continue seeing her, I want to meet her." My stomach dropped. "Why?" "Because she was my best friend," she said. "And now she's in my bed, by proxy at least. I have the right to face her." "You already faced her for 10 years," I said. "You just never saw her." Her gaze hardened. "I want dinner. All 3 of us." I stared at her, wondering what this was. A trap? A twisted form of closure? But part of me wanted it too. To stop pretending we were living parallel lives. To drag it all into the light. "Fine," I said. "Dinner. Dinner with your wife and your lover." It sounds like the start of a bad joke. But there we were, me, Haley, and Chloe, sitting around a table at a trendy little restaurant downtown. Exposed brick walls, candlelight, that awkward jazz playing just loud enough to fill the silences we didn't know how to break. Haley had picked the place. Of course she had. It was neutral ground. A place she thought gave her control. Chloe wore black, nothing showy, just sleek and intentional. Haley wore red. Bold. Territorial. Like she was marking the space with color alone. I couldn't believe this was my life now. "So," Haley said after the drinks arrived, her wine glass barely touched. "How long?" Chloe looked at me, then back at Haley. "A few weeks." "That's fast," Haley said, her smile brittle. "Though I suppose forbidden fruit always ripens quicker." Chloe raised an eyebrow. He didn't feel forbidden. He felt forgotten. The silence that followed was nuclear. I stared down at my drink, my pulse pounding in my ears. Haley took a slow sip. "You were my best friend. And you were my worst example of love," Chloe said, her voice calm. "I watched you slowly let him slip away. Watched him shrink, trying to stay good enough for someone who stopped looking." Haley blinked. "You think that justifies what you did?" "No," Chloe said, leaning forward. "But I think it explains it." I put my hand on the table, trying to slow the collapse. "Can we not do this here?" "No," Haley said, eyes still on Chloe. "This is the place." "You wanted honesty," Chloe said. "So here it is. I didn't plan on this. But I'm not sorry." Haley looked at me then, and for a moment I saw it. The pain. The real thing. Not pride. Not rage. Just the hollow ache of losing something you never thought you'd have to fight for. "I thought we were just playing a game," she said softly. "Pushing boundaries. Testing limits. You pushed, I said. I broke. She nodded. Slowly. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a folded envelope, setting it beside her wine. What's this? I asked. Papers, she said. Separation agreement. I didn't touch it. So that's it. Chloe asked, her voice tight. You blow up the marriage and now you want a neat exit? Haley looked at her with eyes that no longer shimmered. You already helped end it. I'm just writing the credits. We left the restaurant in silence. Chloe and I walked to the car, neither of us saying a word. When we got in, she finally turned to me. Do you still love her? I didn't answer right away. I don't know if I ever did the way she wanted, I said. But I did love what we had. And what about now? I looked at Chloe, her eyes raw, mouth trembling slightly though she tried to hide it. You're not just a rebound, I said. You're something else. She exhaled, nodding. Good. Because I'm not here to be second place. Over the next few weeks, everything changed. Haley moved out, took the guest room furniture, the art from the hallway, and the espresso machine she never let me touch. She left me the marriage bed. I threw it out the next day. Chloe started staying over more. Then, not going home at all. We were messy, awkward, tender. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. We laughed in ways I hadn't laughed in years. We fought over stupid things, her habit of leaving lights on, my obsession with folding towels a certain way. But even the fights had passion. And the sex? It wasn't just heat. It was healing. Slow, tangled mornings in bed. Sudden, desperate pulls toward each other in the hallway. Quiet explorations that weren't just about getting off. They were about finding connection. Trust. Something solid. She wasn't replacing Haley. She was rewriting what I thought love could be. But Haley didn't vanish. She lingered. In texts. In photos. In memories that surfaced in the quiet. She sent me a message one night. I didn't think you'd actually leave. I stared at it for a long time before replying. You never asked why I stayed as long as I did. She didn't respond. One morning, Chloe sat on the couch in one of my old flannels, coffee in hand, legs curled beneath her. You're free now, she said. How does it feel? I looked at her, really looked. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I could answer honestly. It feels like the start of something I never thought I'd get. She smiled. Then don't waste it. And I didn't. Haley never took losing well. Even after the separation papers were signed, she couldn't seem to stay out of my life, or out of Chloe's. At first, it was subtle, passive-aggressive texts. A forgotten necklace that required a visit to the house. An email accidentally sent to both of us, laced with nostalgic undertones and unnecessary emotional landmines. But when she saw that Chloe and I weren't just a fling, that we were happy, something in her snapped. It started with late-night texts. Are you really happy, or just distracted? She doesn't know you the way I did. One day you'll realize what you threw away. I didn't reply. Not at first. But the messages didn't stop. One night, while Chloe and I were curled up on the couch watching some awful reality dating show, her guilty pleasure, not mine, my phone buzzed again. Chloe glanced at the screen and frowned. Let me guess. Her again. I nodded, setting the phone face down. She's unraveling, Chloe said, her voice quiet. She can't stand not being the center. She already left, I said. She just didn't expect the story to move on without her. Chloe was quiet a long moment. She's not going to stop. Not until you make her. I knew she was right. The next time Haley called, I answered. It was nearly midnight. Her voice was soft, tired, almost like the old Haley, before lists and rules and late-night freedom. Can we talk? She asked. We are, I replied flatly. In person? No. She paused. Are you still with her? Yes. Silence. Then, do you ever think about me? Of course, I said. But not the way you hope. Another pause. You used to touch me like I was the only woman in the world. I exhaled. And then you handed me a list of men you wanted instead. That's not fair. It's exactly fair. She was quiet again. Then, I miss you. I didn't reply. And then, in a softer voice, the question she'd been building toward all along. Do you miss me? It hit like a dull blade. Not sharp enough to slice deep, just enough to bruise. I could have lied. Could have thrown her a line. But I was done cushioning her false. I miss who I thought you were, I said. But the woman who needed someone else to feel alive? I don't miss her at all. Click. 2 nights later, she showed up at the house. Uninvited. Slightly drunk. Wearing that black dress she used to save for birthdays and high-end client parties. I just want to talk, she said. mascara slightly smudged. Can I come in? No. She pushed her way past me anyway. The moment she saw Chloe on the couch, barefoot and reading a paperback, her expression shifted. Oh, she said, her voice tight. So it's really domestic now. Chloe stood slowly, calm as ever. Do you want to schedule this meltdown? Or are we doing it now? Excuse me. You heard me, Chloe said. You had him. You let him go. Don't be surprised someone else saw the value you ignored. Haley scoffed. You were my best friend. No, Chloe said, stepping closer. I was your mirror. And you hated the reflection. I stepped between them. That's enough. Haley looked at me. You really love her? Yes. Her lip trembled. She nodded. Okay. And then, quietly, then don't forget what it felt like to be second. Because that's what she'll be, eventually. She walked out without another word. I didn't stop her. After that, things changed. The text stopped. The games. The emotional warfare. Maybe it was pride. Maybe she finally accepted that she'd bet wrong. Whatever it was, her shadow faded from our days. And Chloe and I, we found our rhythm. It wasn't perfect. Some nights we fought. Sometimes the past crept into bed with us, uninvited and cold. But more often, we built something new. She learned how I took my coffee. I learned how she liked her back touch when she couldn't sleep. We talked about the future, not in broad strokes, but in quiet, tangible plans. Vacations. Moving in. Maybe more. One night, we stood on the balcony, watching the city breathe. Chloe leaned into me, arms around my waist. You ever think we were supposed to find each other this way? She asked. I thought about it. About the wreckage. The betrayal. The rawness of what we built. And still, I smiled. No, I said. But I'm glad we did. It started with a tagged photo on Instagram. A group shot at a friend's rooftop party, me, Chloe, arms around each other, laughing like we didn't have ghosts. Someone had snapped it from across the deck. Haley wasn't in it, but she saw it. Of course she did. An hour later, the text started. From people I hadn't heard from in months. Is it true? Are you really with her? You guys were goals. What happened? Apparently, Haley had taken our private collapse and made it public art. She'd posted a now-deleted story, a black and white photo of our wedding day with the caption, "Sometimes betrayal wears a familiar face." No names. No specifics. But everyone knew. Everyone who mattered. I hadn't realized how many people had been quietly watching our marriage from the outside. How many had chosen sides in a battle we didn't even know we were performing for them. Friends started splitting like fault lines. Mike and Jess, our couple friends from the wine club, ghosted me completely. Jess, who once drunkenly told me I was the blueprint for a real man, blocked me on every platform. Rachel from Haley's work unfollowed Chloe and then sent her a DM. I hope it was worth it. Even my sister called to check in. You couldn't wait until the ink was dry? She asked. You really had to shack up with her best friend? I wanted to defend myself. I wanted to say you don't know what she did. But I didn't. Because none of it would change how it looked from the outside. Haley had lit the match. And Chloe and I were standing in the fire. At first, Chloe brushed it off. Let them talk, she said, tossing her phone onto the bed. They don't live with us. But after the third anonymous message calling her a homewrecker, she got quiet. We stopped going out as much. She pulled back on posting anything with me, even laughed less. One night, she curled into me in bed and whispered, "Is this going to define us?" "No," I said, kissing the crown of her head. "It'll refine us." She didn't respond. And that silence scared me more than any insult from the outside world. The turning point came 2 weeks later, at a friend's engagement party. I debated not going. I knew Haley might be there. But it was Eric, one of the few friends who hadn't taken a side. His fiancée, Lynn, had insisted on inviting both of us. Chloe wore navy blue. Simple. Elegant. Her hair up. She looked like strength in human form, even if her grip on my hand tightened when we walked in. Haley was already there. She saw us immediately. She didn't approach, but her friends did. Jessica, Haley's college roommate and unofficial spokesperson, cornered us by the champagne table. "Wow," she said, looking Chloe up and down. "Didn't expect to see you here." Chloe sipped her drink. "Good to see you too, Jess." "Must be nice," Jess continued, getting the man and the moral high ground. "Quite the talent." I stepped in. "That's enough." But Chloe didn't flinch. She just smiled, that slow, dangerous smile I'd come to recognize. "You know what's funny?" she said, voice cool. "I waited 10 years while Haley took him for granted. I never made a move. never said a word. I watched her rewrite their vows behind his back and call it maturity. So maybe you should ask yourself, was I the villain, or just the one who saw value in what she discarded? Jessica blinked. Chloe finished her drink and walked away. I followed, heart pounding. That night, when we got home, I pulled her into me the moment we shut the door. You okay? I asked. She nodded. I just hate being someone's cautionary tale. You're not, I said. You're the reason I started living again. And I meant it. The storm passed, slowly. Haley moved on, at least on the surface. I saw a post of her with a new guy, someone artsy with a beard and too many rings. The caption read, "Healing isn't linear, but some paths are prettier than others." Good for her. Really, because I was done being haunted, done apologizing for happiness. And as Chloe lay beside me, her breath soft and steady in the dark, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. I hadn't ruined anything. I'd just stopped pretending it wasn't already broken. She showed up at the house on a Tuesday. No warning, no call, just the sound of the doorbell echoing through the hallway, sharp and unexpected. Chloe was at work. I was home alone, working through some invoices in the living room when I opened the door and saw Haley, standing there like some half-forgotten ghost from a dream you can't quite shake. She looked different. Not bad, not worse, just not mine anymore. Her hair was shorter, her eyes softer, but tired. She wore a denim jacket over a gray dress and carried no bag, like she'd come to make peace or war, but not both. Can we talk? She asked. I stepped aside without saying anything. We sat across from each other in the living room. Not close, not far, just enough space for everything unsaid to sit between us like a third body. She looked around the room, eyes landing on the photo shelf. All the pictures had changed. Chloe and me at the lake, Chloe and me at a street fair, a goofy shot of us on the couch in Halloween costumes. Haley's old frames were gone. Her fingers tightened on her knees. You replaced everything. You left, I said simply. She nodded, biting her bottom lip. I thought I could handle it. The separation, the consequences. But what? I didn't think you'd actually be happier without me. That sentence was heavier than it should have been. I leaned back, crossing my arms. Why are you really here, Haley? Her eyes met mine. To her credit, she didn't flinch. I miss you. I exhaled, slow and tired. No, you miss who I used to be. Before you broke me. I was confused. No, I interrupted. You were selfish. Her eyes flashed, but I kept going. You didn't come to me asking for help. You came to me with a list. You'd already made your decision. You were just making sure I wouldn't stand in your way. That's not fair. It's exactly fair. She looked away, her voice quiet. I didn't think you'd actually go through with it. I didn't think you'd sleep with her. I stared at her. You laughed when I told you I wouldn't. You never asked why. That made her pause. And for the first time, I saw it, the crack in the armor. Not defiance. Not manipulation. Just regret. Why didn't you? She asked, barely a whisper. I shook my head. Because I loved you. Even when you started pulling away. Even when you made me feel like I wasn't enough. I still wanted to believe we could fix it. A long silence. Then, and now. Now. I laughed, but it wasn't funny. Now I realize love isn't just about staying. It's about being seen. And Chloe, she sees me. Haley's throat worked around something she didn't say. She's not perfect, I added. Neither am I. But with her, I don't feel like I have to earn affection. Or beg for connection. She's not keeping score. Haley blinked hard. I didn't mean to turn it into a competition. But you did, I said. You made love conditional. Transactional. Like it was something to manage instead of feel. She looked at the floor. I wish I could take it back. I nodded. I know. We sat in silence. For a while, it wasn't awkward. Just heavy. Grief, maybe. Or closure. Finally, she stood. I should go. I followed her to the door. She paused on the threshold. If I had asked you to fight for me, she said, would you have? I didn't even need to think. You never gave me the chance. She nodded once, eyes glassy, and walked down the path. She didn't look back. And I didn't ask her to. Chloe came home an hour later. She found me on the back patio, sipping the last of the afternoon sun. She came, didn't she? She asked. I nodded. She tried to get you back? I nodded again. Chloe sat beside me. And I let her go, I said. For good this time. She took my hand. Held it. We didn't need to say anything else. Some endings don't need punctuation. They just need honesty. And finally, I had that. It's strange how quiet life becomes after chaos. After the shouting, the betrayal, the sleepless nights and shaking hands, what's left is just stillness. Not empty, not numb, just full of space where hurt used to live. Chloe and I moved in together officially 3 months after Haley left for good. It wasn't dramatic. No housewarming party or social media announcements. Just boxes, takeout on the floor, in the sense that we were building something, not salvaging it. I never thought I'd end up here, I told her one night as we unpacked a box labeled living room, fragile. She was unwrapping an old picture frame. It held a photo of me at the beach, sunburnt and grinning like an idiot, hair blown all over my face. She smiled. I did, she said. Not like this. But I always hoped. That hit harder than I expected. You really carried a torch for me that long? She shrugged. Maybe. Or maybe I just always saw something in you that Haley never bothered to look for. That's what it came down to in the end. Not sex. Not revenge. Not even betrayal. It was being seen. And valued. We made mistakes. We still fought. There were mornings I woke up and had to remind myself I wasn't living in the wreckage of what was. That I didn't have to watch my partner dress for someone else. That I didn't have to pretend I was okay with loving someone who treated my affection like obligation. Chloe didn't ask me to forget the past. She just made it easier to stop living in it. We built new routines. Sunday coffee runs. Friday movie nights. Sex that wasn't about proving anything, just connecting, stripping away the armor. There was a moment, weeks into our new life, when I caught her brushing her teeth in my t-shirt, barefoot, humming a song she always forgot the lyrics to. And I thought, this is what safety feels like. Not complacency. Security. Being loved without fear of performance. People kept asking how it all happened. Some politely. Some with a judgmental glint in their eyes. I stopped explaining. Because the truth is, love isn't linear. It doesn't always arrive in the package you expect. Sometimes it shows up wearing the face of your wife's best friend, years after you stopped feeling chosen. Sometimes the story you're writing gets ripped up halfway through. But that doesn't mean you stop writing. Haley and I never became friends again. We don't speak, though I heard she moved to Seattle, started dating someone who writes poetry and drinks oat milk lattes. Good for her. I don't hate her. Not anymore. I learned more from losing her than I ever did by staying. I learned that a vow is only sacred if both people believe in it. That love can suffocate if it isn't nourished. And that the worst betrayal isn't sex, it's indifference. One morning, Chloe curled into me after a long night of tossing and turning. You ever think we'll mess this up? She asked sleepily. I smiled, running my fingers through her hair. Probably. She laughed. That's not very reassuring. I mean it, I said. We'll mess up. We'll fight. We'll say things we regret. But we'll do it together. And we won't pretend it's not happening. She nodded. That's all I need. We fell asleep like that, tangled up in sunlight and old blankets, our flaws laid bare but accepted. Not perfect. Just real. So, here's my advice to anyone who's standing on the edge of that same emotional cliff. Don't stay out of fear. Don't go out of revenge. Go because your heart isn't being fed. Go because your soul has stopped growing. Go because staying is just a slower way of dying. And when you finally find the person who sees you, not the version you perform, not the roles you've been boxed into, but you, don't run from it. Even if it's complicated. Even if it comes from the most unexpected corner of your life. Sometimes love isn't about where you started. It's about where you finally feel home. And I found mine in the arms of the woman I was never supposed to touch, but who touched something in me no one else ever had.